Story 1: Peeking Shadows. When I was in my early 20s, I dated a guy I fell head over heels for. We were sheltered kids, so we hadn't got the chance to explore the big city we always have lived in. We would go out almost every night to explore since we were still in our puppy love stage. We found this beautiful dam with a nice long dirt road parking lot across from it one night. When we discovered it, it was probably around 3 a.m. We drove around the dam, but decided to just park and look at the stars. It was super hot and humid that night, so we rolled down the windows and opened the sunroof to get some air. We were only there for about 15 minutes when I turned to look at him, but saw something peeking from behind the garbage bins behind him. I stopped in my tracks and kept looking. He got confused and asked, "What are you doing?" I saw it peek again. It was dark, and the moon was our only light, so I just saw a small black shadow figure peeking and hiding over and over again. I didn't say anything, considering we were only about 10 feet away from whatever it was. I suggested, "Hey, it's getting late, and I'm getting tired, so let's go home." He agreed, turned on the car, and backed out of the parking spot and started driving. I kept telling him to hurry. Though he was confused, he was also rushing. Suddenly, the long driveway to the parking lot got foggy so quickly that we couldn't see anything anymore. We just blindly drove out, hoping we didn't crash into anything. Once we were getting close to the entrance, things started becoming clear and the fog started going away. On the way home, he asked me what happened. I told him what I saw and he didn't say a word. But we both still didn't know where the fog came from, since it cleared as soon as we got out. Safe to say, we never went back to that dam again. Story number 2: The Basement. I was 18 years old at the time this incident happened to me. I slept in the basement of our house, which we've been told multiple times that an elderly lady fell and passed away in front of the basement closet. We never thought much about it since it was what we could afford at the time. Everyone has always felt uneasy going downstairs. Of course, we had a big family and rooms were limited, so I had no choice but to occupy the basement. There has always been a dark brown, large stain on the carpet in front of my closet. Obviously, it looks like it had been cleaned before, but probably not good enough. We've never cared for it, but on the back of my mind, I've always thought maybe it was blood from the old lady everyone keeps talking about. I've always brushed it off because I was excited having my own room for the first time. Fast forward to 1 year later. One night I got home from work at about 2:30 a.m., showered, and went straight to bed. I was tossing and turning but couldn't sleep at all, even though I was exhausted from my 10-hour shift. I heard something fall in the closet, which was closed. I have a ton of stuff, so what I assumed was my stuff must have fallen from the shelf, considering it wasn't that loud. I closed my eyes hoping I would sleep, but suddenly heard my closet door open. I looked over, and it was indeed open. What? I know I definitely closed it before I laid down, I thought to myself. That's when I realized I was in a state of sleep paralysis. I couldn't move at all except for my eyes. I knew that I definitely didn't fall asleep yet. I kept my eyes on the closet door as there was some moonlight shining through my window. That's when I noticed a dark, long-haired figure peeking out of my closet, as if it was checking on me to see if I had noticed it. At this point, I was freaking out. I could hear my heartbeat as loud as a drum. That figure completely came out from the closet and very slowly floating off the ground came towards me. She eventually stopped right next to my bed and hovered over me. Her face was probably an inch away from mine, but I still couldn't see her face. Her whole body just looked like a pitch black shadow. She stared at me for what felt like an eternity, then stood straight up and slowly moved towards the foot of my bed. She slowly got on my bed and slept right next to me. She sat up after laying there for around 30 seconds. It was at this point I saw how she actually looked. She was very pale, almost like a light gray color, and very skinny to the point where I only saw skin and bone. Her hair was indeed very long and straight, but it looked like it was wet. She just sat there and looked at the foot of my bed. I never thought this night would end, but being so scared, I must have passed out. I woke up the next morning from the sun shining into my eyes and remembered what happened during the night. I thought to myself, that wasn't real, right? I glanced over at my closet and saw my door was really opened, which confirmed what I had saw last night was real. I ran upstairs to my family and never spoke of it to them. Till this day, I will never sleep with the closet door open, even though I don't live there anymore. Story 3. The Ranch. So, before the story begins, we need to go back to 2015, when I first remember going to Mexico in the state of Michoacan, where my mom's side of the family lived. My mom's uncle owned a ranch surrounded by avocado trees. Now, before you actually enter the ranch, you have to go up this path where the trees surround you left and right. It didn't take long to get there, maybe 1 or 2 minutes. During the day, that path didn't bother me. Now, keep in mind, I was 7 at the time. During the night, when we returned from Pueblo, which is about 6 minutes away driving, it creeped the hell out of me. I would always believe something was lurking behind a tree, staring at me or something. And upon arrival to the ranch, it was nothing but darkness except the light from the house where everyone was. So that's basically a backstory and introduction to my uncle's ranch in Mexico. Now there's the Pueblo I mentioned, but I won't be getting into detail about that in this story. My last visit to Michoacan was in 2019. With the pandemic and everything, it prevented me from going. Now, returning this time around made me excited to the point where I felt like a kid on Christmas waiting to open the presents. Upon arrival at my uncle's ranch around 1 p.m., everything was normal. I greeted family members and waited for my cousins, who we are going to call K, to arrive. So my other cousin, who we are going to call D, and I could go for a walk deep into the ranch. Now keep in mind that by the time we arrived, got settled, and eventually went to the ranch, it took about 5 hours, and the sun was about to set. While on the path to the ranch, I asked Kay if he thinks this path is haunted at night, which he replied, "Of course." We walked deep into the ranch, and everything seemed normal until we stumbled across giant holes in the ground. I said to Kay, "What is this?" To which he replied, "That's from the workers." We walked for a little bit longer, and as we were walking, we all heard distant sounds of tractors and machines. I said, "How can we hear the tractors?" Kay replied, "I don't know, man. The work hours are over. All the workers should be home by now." D shouted jokingly, "We're gonna get scared." D had always been the one to not believe in this kind of stuff, and we just passed it off. But still, we were confused and a little creeped out by it. After some more walking, the sun had set, and it was our time to return home. All of us turned on our phone flashlights and talked about what we were going to do these 10 days that we were here. Kay sees someone in the distance, and we all assumed it was a family member coming to get us, and we all yelled, "We're over here!" We didn't walk to who we saw, as we could barely make out who it was. About a minute had passed, and no response. Both D and K turned around and proceeded to walk back, assuming it was a lost animal. However, I wasn't stupid because clearly it was a person. It didn't have the shape of an animal. Before turning around, I saw that thing run into a tree and hide behind it. I instantly yelled, "That person isn't a family member." We all started running, and in the distance, we could see the light from the house. When we got close enough, we stopped running and turned around to see nothing but darkness. All of us were relieved and began walking. Before entering, we heard distant sounds of a woman screaming, which terrified the fuck out of us, and we sprinted into the house. Now, we returned because we were called for dinner. Upon entering the kitchen, nobody was there. As I turned the lights on, I looked at the glass sliding door and in the far back corner saw a shadow peeking. As I turned the lights on, it disappeared. Now, creeped out, I tell my cousins, I saw somebody outside standing there. We discovered that we were having dinner not at the house, but at the house that was down the path to get to the ranch. So in 2016 to 17, my uncle built a house along the path that gets you to the ranch. When we saw that message, we were terrified to walk back. So we make a call to our other uncle, who we're going to call N. Now, once we get picked up, D goes in the passenger seat and K and I go in the trunk. K and I see two figures at the gates to enter the ranch. We yell, "Go N, there's somebody behind us." He speeds up and we arrive at the house and sprint inside. We tell everyone our story, but as usual, they don't believe us. I went to bed that night terrified, as that was my first encounter with anything paranormal. A few days after this incident, I was chilling and just finished eating tacos with my cousins, and my aunt is in distress as she could not find her iPhone for work. She then located it on her MacBook, and I asked where it was. She replied, "It's on the path to the ranch." My heart skipped a beat as she wanted me to come with her. Thankfully, driving and not walking. We drove for a little bit, and after being in the area of the phone, we heard it beeping in the distance. I looked over at the gate, remembering what I saw a few nights ago on our way back. I saw a woman in white clothes and dark hair peeking behind a tree. I sat down and told my aunt to take me to the pueblo instead of the house. She could tell I was scared, so she drove me right away. I never returned to the ranch for the rest of my trip. Fast forward about a year later, I had just gotten news a few days ago that the family is returning to Mexico later this year, this time for the whole summer. I'm terrified to return, but I hope you enjoyed the story for my first paranormal experience. Thank you guys so much for watching our first episode of Storytime. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please drop a like, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. I plan on doing a lot more of these in the future. It was really fun to record and read all these scary stories. Hope you enjoyed, and until next time, stay safe and stay healthy.